In a competitive world, average won't cut it. The Success Launch Point shows you how to stand out, deliver massive value, and rise above the crowd. With on-demand courses, expert coaching, and a community focused on growth, you'll accelerate your career and your paycheck. It's time to level up. Check out modernobserver.com/launchpoint.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And the wins just keep on piling up for Hitler, fascist, Mr. Fascist. Seems like he's racking up a lot more peace deals than Uncle Joe. And it looks like Obama is getting increasingly pissed as well about that. But what are we talking about? We're talking about the Gaza deal. Your thoughts, and do you find it interesting, rhetorical question, that all the crazy Palestinian nutcases are kind of bummed? It's like the party ended. There you go.
Well, they're not simply bummed. There have actually been the Democratic Socialists, which is the party of Mondani and AOC, have actually condemned the deal, saying it does nothing for the Palestinian people. Really, it keeps them alive. 2, it gets rid of Hamas so they can govern themselves. 3, it provides a ton of aid for them. But no, it doesn't do anything for the Palestinians. The simple fact of the matter is all of those protesters fell into one of 2 categories. Either A, they were paid and had no idea what they were talking about, or B, they just wanted to kill Jews.
I would agree with that 100%. I would throw in a third, and it goes into the uninformed, uneducated, which you initially stated, Ivy Leaguers. I think it was just kind of cool. It was cause du jour. How do you like that? Like Greta Thunberg, when this shit dies, it'll be, I don't know what the next thing will be. You're the doctor. Could be inhumane treatment of cows.
Yeah, well, I think the next thing is they're going to fall back on Trump is a dictator. We have to protest him. Hence the No Kings protests that are coming up over the weekend.
You know something? It's like a pitcher. When your arm goes, you just go back to what you did best, the curveball.
Right.
I think you're right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But that's a holding pattern until the next thing comes.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, but it'll be something.
They'll find something. What I found amazing was the comments from Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken trying to claim responsibility for this peace deal.
You know something I would akin that to? A drunk driver that smashed into 4 houses taking credit when the garbage trucks come to clean up the mess. That's about what it is.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It is absolutely amazing to me how many Democrats were either silent or praised the deal, conveniently leaving out the names of Trump and Netanyahu.
Yeah, and one of them, it was Obama, and he was like a petulant little schoolboy. You see him; he used to be the arbitrator. He exuded confidence in the art of bullshit, which is the only thing he was actually good at. He was sitting in a podcast interview, looking so pissed, so dejected, arms crossed, all the body language signs saying, "I want my ball and I'm going home. This is not right. I have nothing. I have no legacy. I have nothing. All I do is have a shitty library that looks like a friggin' missile silo."
Well, that particular podcast was very telling. The podcast that we're referring to, for any listeners that may not have seen this, is Mark Maron's Garage. It has been going for about 10 years or so. And but this is not the first time Obama has appeared on it. He appeared on it, I believe, all the way back to 2015. Mark Maron is a well-known comedian who is very far to the left. And of course, he was a big Obama supporter. But that particular podcast, aside from showcasing how far Obama has fallen, is also notable because it was the last episode of Mark Maron's podcast, and which is why he had Obama on, because he's shutting down that podcast. As it turns out, left-leaning podcasts aren't doing well.
No, it's shocking. Remember Air America back like 20 years ago? They all flame.
And again,
look at MSNBC.
Giving the historical context for those listeners who blinked and missed Air America. Air America was it was a short-lived radio network that was put together primarily to combat Rush Limbaugh. Their biggest name commentator was Al Franken, and it flamed out spectacularly. They never gained traction and closed pretty quickly.
It actually made the space shuttle look like it actually made the Hindenburg look like the space shuttle. It died immediately.
Yeah, it was a disaster. And now we're seeing the same thing with liberal and left-wing podcasts. And it is really indicative of how the media is changing now. Because the audience, we've talked about this ad infinitum, so I won't dwell on it, but basically, the audience has looked at these and gone, "You've been lying to us for years. Goodbye, we're gone."
Doctor, just like Dr. Jill, who could be a doctor of anything. In fact, I think Whoopi said that she should be Surgeon General, a genius. But anyway, did you see the body language on Obama? Could you please share your insight? That looked about as happy as someone going to serve a 20-year jail sentence.
Yeah, if I pretend to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I would have to say he looked clinically depressed. And to be fair, I can understand why. I mean, his legacy has been decimated, not just by Donald Trump, but by the American people as a whole. His legacy was repudiated not once, but twice. First, when Trump beat Hillary, because if you remember, his whole campaigning for her was about his legacy, and she was going to protect his legacy. And America went, "We don't care about your legacy." And then he thought he had a second chance when Biden was elected, and Biden wrecked his legacy.
You know, that's really funny. Be careful what you wish for. He had a useful idiot, but sometimes the idiot can be too much of an idiot. Yeah, that was the final straw. And even with the people from the hood, so to speak, that he thought he was cool, he once was hip, the swagger, even though he really had nothing in relation to them. They completely repudiated. Remember when into the barber shop? If that was a white person, that would be racist. That's like, hey, get off, you're on the plantation, do as I say. I mean, it was really condescending. And it shows you how out of touch this billionaire is, isn't he?
Yeah, he was never really in touch with the American people, but he certainly, in the last election, was shown the door by the African American male community, who shifted towards Trump in huge numbers. But more than that, I mean, let's face it. Yes, they haven't come out and said it, but everybody on both sides of the aisle has speculated that his marriage is over. So he had
Oh, I have to interject something. I love Megyn Kelly. There are people that literally, I'm talking about, in a that literally hate each other, that speak better of that other person than
Yes.
Michelle. When you get to the point, I'm sorry, I am not a marriage therapist, but when you say, I hate the way my significant other eats, that's pretty much you despise them. I mean, I don't like
Yeah,
the
so I
way
mean, I understand why he would look depressed because he's got a lot going on and none of it is going his way. But we've kind of gone astray. I want to return this to what's actually going on in Gaza because first of all, this was phase 1 and there's already problems. Hamas has not returned all of the bodies of the hostages. They returned all of the living hostages, but the peace treaty, the ceasefire also called for them to return the bodies of the dead hostages. Honestly, I don't think they know where they are. I think they killed these hostages, disposed of the bodies somewhere, and nobody bothered to keep track of it because they never thought anybody would want the bodies back. Either that or they never thought that they were going to lose. But they then turned on the Palestinians and started executing Palestinians who they said were collaborating with the Israelis. They have given some pushback over whether or not they will disarm, to which Trump, in no uncertain terms, said they will disarm or we will disarm them.
You mean the U.S. will disarm them?
That's what Trump said, yes. Although
Good. I think that's good.
I actually don't think he was referring strictly to the US. There is right now an international military force in Israel overseeing all of this. There are US troops as part of this, but it's come from a number of countries. I think that's the force he's referring to.
Now, how about all the highly educated Ivy League intellectually elites? Um, I didn't hear anything about the Palestinian shooting fellow Palestinians. What happened?
No,
I didn't hear anything.
they've been very quiet about it. Like we said, Joe, a day after Israel went in and struck Hamas, you had pro-Palestinian protesters all over the colleges with professionally printed signs.
Yes, I like that. Pronto Printer, I think they're out of business, but yeah, it's very coincidental, isn't it? There you go.
So
Well, then I think Trump has to get to the bottom of that shit.
yeah, they came out immediately. But now that there's peace, which is what they allegedly wanted, crickets. No celebration, no congratulations, nothing. Meanwhile, the Palestinians were celebrating the peace deal and thanking Donald Trump.
Yes, but I think your initial assertion is spot on. It was never about the Palestinian. It was hatred of the Jews. Let's cut the shit. That's what it was.
It was, well,
And it was just
I'm gonna adjust that a little bit. I think it was primarily hatred of the Jews, but I think there was also a hatred of Trump mixed in there.
yeah, fueled by, but the mixture, the solidifier was hatred of the Jews, which
Yes,
is rampant
it
on
was
Ivy League campuses.
It was anti-Semitism, pure and simple. And you'll notice
Now it gets
how
to rear its ugly head.
yeah, and you'll notice how quiet Mondami has been about all of this, how quiet the squad has been about all of this.
That is correct. Well, Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York, and I think that would be the greatest thing to happen
Maybe.
to pretty much be. She doesn't get
He is still in the lead of double digits, but now he's got a new scandal because he took $13,000 of foreign money to fund his campaign. Well, guess what? It's illegal to take foreign money as a campaign donation. So now they're investigating this, and this actually came out from his own campaign finance reports that every candidate has to file. So he didn't even try to hide it. So we're going to have to see, because he may be kicked off the ballot or quite possibly arrested.
So moving on to more domestic, well, that is a domestic political event phenomenon. We have Katie Porter, the Nutrisystem spokesperson. I'm sorry. I mean, the gubernatorial candidate of California. Not just one meltdown. I think she might have like emotional health issues. She freaked out because she, again, like any liberal, and the media, you said this, has changed. Is it where it should be? No, but it's starting to push back because of it, for its own survival. So they asked a couple of follow-up questions that maybe a high school kid could answer. She freaks out, storms out, and then she has the "fu" tirade of someone dare gets in her screenshot, and then she threw boiling potatoes on her ex-husband's head, which, by the way, he deserves, because anyone who marries her deserves anything they get. But totally unhinged. I think her career is over. And then you have Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, uh, refusing, and actually he kind of got rescued by her opponent because she was in a total word salad, not being able to disavow the a candidate for attorney general in Virginia, that actually through text messages, and even didn't disavow it in the text messages, basically calling for the execution of of a Republican and their children. But what is it? Why is that important, Dr. Lockett? What it's really important and why it's so salient is because it's not just the bullshit aside, some, candidates too stupid to disavow. It's because the Democratic Party is so insane and radicalized that if she went against it and disavowed him, she would lose support and donations. That's the state of the Democratic Party. Your thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a large percentage, and this is actually less to do with party, and it seems to have more to do with age. But there is a large percentage of the younger generation that says political violence is justified. Now,
More on the left, though.
you could say this is a result of the education system, of the brainwashing that's been going on. But you know what I find really amazing with Spamberger? She's running for governor of Virginia. Now, she's the Democrat. The Democrats for years have been saying, well, we need to support minorities, we need to support women. The Republicans are running Winsome Sears, the current lieutenant governor, who is an African American woman of great intellect and, quite frankly, a lot of chutzpah. She's got a backbone, unlike most politicians. So how are they justifying not supporting an African American woman for this office?
I know the answer to that because it's selective minority adulation. It's if you're a conservative Black or Hispanic, then or Jew, you can just hit the road. And the first one to experience that was Joe Lieberman. Once a darling, but when the party became more and more insane, he was thrown out, baby with the bathwater. He had to run it as an independent. His ass would be thrown out of the Democratic Party right here and now.
Well, he left the Democratic Party because of what was going on and beat them as an independent.
Yes, which would probably not happen today because I think those people that did vote for him have drifted off even more into the nutcase world in Connecticut. But you talk about youth and the propensity for violence or accepting of political violence. I believe that is 90% on the Democratic side. And it does show you how crazy the Democratic Party is. And if they don't get their shit together, they'll become increasingly marginalized and unappealing to anyone who is mentally stable.
Well, I'm not going to comment on which side it is because I honestly have not seen statistics. The statistics I have seen focus on generational rather than party line. But to not to put too fine a point on it, it doesn't matter what side it's on. It's unacceptable no matter who is saying it. And that is what everybody needs to start talking about. Stop blaming the other side, whichever side you're on, and come out and say, political violence is unacceptable. It is not acceptable to threaten or kill conservatives. It is not acceptable to threaten or kill liberals. You can disagree, but take a page from Charlie Kirk and open a dialogue and talk to each other.
I would say that I have not looked at any hard statistics, but if you put a gun to my head, no pun intended, it is overwhelmingly on the liberal side. Democrats say it all the time, call people Hitler, they need to be removed. Those are all kind of code words and and talk that encourages this type of acceptance. And with Abigail, first of all, I thought she was, that her pedigree looks really good. On that debate, she didn't look like a Mensa candidate, but I strongly believe with what I heard that the she could not disavow him because the state of the Democratic Party is such she would lose support and financial backing,
Well,
which is a sad state of affairs.
particularly in Virginia. Remember, Virginia is essentially a purple state. So
Mhm.
she has to take whatever support she can get. As for her performance at the debate, I'm not going to actually hold that against her because you know what? I'm a pretty smart guy. I don't think I could hold my own against Winsome Sears. She's just that good.
Possibly correct. I would give you that one. Um, you mentioned something, it wouldn't be the first time, by the way, that we talked about Bad Bunny. Okay. And I had no idea how that happened, but I have bigger things to think about. But it happened. They're going to do this. So when you say, well, I think as this gets crazier, because it's not just Bad Bunny, it's been going on for like good 5 years. And I couldn't even tell you who the hell is on that stage. One with people wrapped in sheets or whatever. Who cares? That you're going to have alternative programming. And you were getting that with Turning Point USA. They're going to have their own alternative halftime show. And my prediction, doctor, is they may not be the first for this year. Definitely in the future, there'll be many more. And so chew on that for a while, your thoughts. But I also think it gets back to what we talked about last week about suits ruining a unruinable, there is no word of that, uh, entity called the NFL. How the hell do you have Bad Bunny? That's bizarre and ridiculous.
Well, I mean, honestly, given the headlines of the past year or so, I'm actually shocked they don't have Taylor Swift as the halftime show. Um, Lord knows she's been to enough
Would he do it?
games, but, God only knows. Yeah, I honestly, I think you throw enough money at her, she'll do anything. But
Actually, the can't. No, wait a second. That's a useful, useless tidbit. You don't get paid for the Super Bowl. They only pay to for your setup.
really,
Man,
I was
so
not
yeah,
I was
that is
not
true.
aware of
Like
that.
Paul McCartney, you can have explosions, you can have blah blah blah. They will pay for that, but they will not pay for the acts. Obviously, there's money stipend off, I would believe, but she doesn't need any money, by the way. So anyway, But yeah, Bad Bunny, and I think that was an interesting point. And I wonder, we'll have to revisit this after the Super Bowl, what the ratings were between the two. And there may be another. I'm not so sure there won't be another. Because if you're a bright person, entity, entertainment corporation, this is a golden opportunity to establish yourself as the alternative. I'm going Charlie Kirk. That's obviously going to be more politically, but have someone that people actually won't throw up about. There you go.
Well, unless one of the other networks actually chooses to carry alternative programming, we're not actually going to know about the ratings because, as I understand it, at this point, Turning Point's plan is to air this on their YouTube channel. Well, you don't actually get ratings on the YouTube channel. They'll be able to tell views, but there it's not apples and oranges between the way television gets their ratings and the way YouTube does. So we're not actually going to know in comparison how one does. Again, the only way to do it would be apples to apples is if one of the competing networks says, you know what, we're going to air Turning Point's show.
Okay, let me throw something out there. You could have an entity like, of course, like Newsmax, but you could also have TBS. You could have something else that and that would be an opportunity for them. So I think it can be done, and I think it will be done.
Well,
And I think
it's really got to be done by one of either the broadcast networks or the basic cable networks.
That's not TBS, something like that.
TBS would be fine. Newsmax would actually be a complete disaster because most cable companies don't carry it. So it's not going to get ratings no matter what they put on.
Okay, fair enough. But the point is another venue. We conclude with the shutdown, and you had comments like, and by the way, I think Chuck Schumer's pretty much finished. He's hanging on by his skin of his teeth or dentures, whatever. Anyway, he said that every day that goes by looks better for the Democrats. I don't know what he's smoking, but that's not or what he's cooking. I'm talking raw hamburgers. But anyway, they're extending this, maybe not the full reason, but one of the reasons, so they could have more fuel and emphasis on the No Kings March at the mall in Washington, D.C. and across the country.
Now, I don't know why they would do this because, especially for the protest on the mall, we already know that the vast majority of attendees are going to be paid protesters. They're going to be Democratic staffers who are told this is part of your job to go protest. So they're not, whether or not the government reopens or not, is not going to make much of an impact on these protests.
It's the Isaacs, though. It gives them a reason. They're because the media can say they're protesting no kings because of this horrible shutdown.
Well, they can say anything they want. That doesn't make it true. The fact of the matter is,
Well, the media always report the truth. No.
So far, every poll, and I've looked at a lot of them, and even the ones that swing left, show that the general public is blaming the Democrats for this shutdown. More so after this past week, when, as we record this, it is the 15th of October, and this is payday for federal employees and the military. Now, federal employees who have not been laid off or furloughed are out of luck on getting paid today. However, the military reapportioned, I believe it was almost $8 billion from military research to make sure the troops were paid on time. So you've got the general public who is looking at this saying, well, no, it's very clear that it's the Democrats' fault, especially since, go back to the Obama administration when there was another shutdown, and Obama was yelling at the top of his lungs that the Republicans need to accept the continuing resolution with no changes so that they can keep the government open and negotiate the budgets in good faith. Well, that's exactly what the Republicans are pushing for, and it's the Democrats now that are refusing to do it. So Obama's own words are coming back to haunt the Democratic Party. Either way, this does not look good for the Democrats.
Yeah, but it's the bigger issue. I agree with all of that, obviously. But I think the bigger issue is you're looking at a party that's not in its death throes, but certainly is starting to circle the toilet. And what happens is that people become more desperate and they're hanging on to anything to be relevant. As Trump racks up victory after victory, his stature in the world is exponentially different and better than it was 5 years ago. And they're holding on to increasingly more bullshit than reality. That is my analysis, Dr. Lopkin.
Yet they have not yet grasped the lessons from 2024. They keep thinking, oh, people didn't believe our message, or people didn't, we misspoke. You hear that one a lot. It's like, no, your policies are wrong. And until they can get that through their heads, I mean, just yesterday, the Los Angeles City Council voted to use taxpayer money to pay the rents of illegal immigrants who ICE has arrested for being here illegally, if they're family members. Well, you know what? That sounds wonderful. You're being compassionate to the families of those who these people were supporting, except they've done absolutely nothing for all of the people who are still without homes because of the LA fires. So
agreed on all that. I think when you talk about the messaging, Dr. Lopkin, I think it also goes into Ms. Porters and the rest of them. They're arrogant. They are such elitists. They think they're so much better than anyone else that they can't come to grips with the fact that, no, people didn't misunderstand their message. The problem was they did understand it, and they think it's effing crazy. How do you like that?
yeah, I mean, we're seeing it over and over again. Kamala Harris actually said in her book that the Democrats knew that it was unfair to female athletes to have transgender athletes compete against them. But they couldn't abandon the transgender voters. They were going to side with him no matter if it was right or wrong. Well, you know what? That's what they keep doing. They have picked a side. They don't care if it's right or wrong. All they care is it politically expedient? This is why in Joe Manchin's book, he talks about the fact that it was important for the Republicans to win in 2024 to stop the, quote, the Democrats' naked pursuit of power. And this is not
Correct.
This is not a right-wing ideologue that's saying it. It's Joe Manchin.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, another edition of Carnivore Bites has passed, but our viewers can contribute to the show, can't they? Our listeners, I should say.
Yes, we want to hear from you. Let us know what you have to say. Go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what issues are important to you. You can also reach out to us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I will see you next week.
We'll see you then.